Hello and welcome back. Ferling etude number 24 in F sharp minor is a very difficult etude with a lot of notes, and it's marked at a very fast tempo. The composition features an extremely high note at the end that usually the oboe never plays. Measures 43 through 54 are the coda of the composition and are primarily the F sharp melodic minor scale and the F sharp minor arpeggio. Now let's take a look, before we get into the details, at the rhythms and counting of the coda of etude number 24. Count along with me. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 1 and 2 3 1 and 2 3 1 1. The best approach to practice initially is to take one measure plus one note at a time. Listen as I do that for you. Now let's get into some of the details that make the coda challenging and rewarding from a musical standpoint. First, measure 44. There's a semi-chromatic scale. C sharp, C double sharp, D sharp, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp. But I tend to think of it as C sharp, D, D sharp, C sharp, D sharp, F, F sharp. Now, how to approach that measure. You can see in the music that I've marked the left and the right little finger keys for you. In this measure, both D sharps are going to have to be played on the left side. So we'll approach those notes first, C sharp, D, D sharp. Then back to the right, C sharp, and then back to the D sharp again. On professional oboes, when you go from D sharp to C sharp to D sharp, you can just leave the D sharp key down and the two keys will switch automatically, like on mine. And you'll notice I'm only moving the little finger of the right hand. If your oboe does not have this method, it's okay. You can switch fingers with just a little bit of practice. And it just takes a little bit of practice of the timing of the little fingers on the left and the right side. Now let's take a look at one of the notes that we'd rather not see in a composition, E sharp at the end of the measure. Of course, that note is F natural. And in this case, you will have to play it forked F. There's no getting around it. You've just played C sharp, D sharp on the left side, and now you're going to play forked F with the E flat key still down on the left side. So, in a sense, we are ending this measure with the F sharp major scale, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp. Now let's take a look at measures 47 through 49. Three measures of arpeggios, and you'll notice that the articulations are exactly the same in each bar, and the arpeggios are of only two types. There's an F minor arpeggio, F sharp A, C sharp, and then C sharp, E sharp, G sharp. And if you're like me and not always fond of C sharp major or thinking in sharps, you could think of that measure as a D flat major arpeggio. And then finally, another F sharp A, C sharp. Note that the articulations are the same. Your tonguing approach should be the same both times. Now let's take a look at measure 48 specifically in that group of arpeggios. We've got C sharp, E sharp, G sharp, and of course you're free to think of it as D flat, F, A flat. Regardless, you should play the E sharp with left F and the G sharp on the right side. So we're going to be going from left F to the right G sharp. If a student feels like because of tempo he or she is not able to play the left F to the right G sharp smoothly or confidently, forked F would be an okay substitute, but not the best substitute for playing in tune. The C sharp to forked F has its own challenges with coordination. Now let's take a look at measure 50, a very unusual arpeggio, even in this key. You'll notice the notes are D, B, G sharp, F, I don't even want to say E sharp, D, and B natural again. The name of the arpeggio is E sharp diminished 7. It's a series of minor thirds, and E sharp is 1/2 step below the key name, F sharp, for F sharp minor. So this is a diminished 7 arpeggio that leads us to the final arpeggio of F sharp minor. You'll notice that you're going to have to play G sharp and F again. I don't recommend at this speed and with the arpeggio descending that you try right G sharp, left F. I can do it, but it's very awkward and the oboe moves around a lot because you're going from the right hand little finger to the left hand little finger like this. I'm not crazy about it. I think for the vast majority of players, just playing regular forked F, no E flat key needed, is perfectly fine. And that's what I'm doing myself. And at even a moderate speed, you can't tell did the player use forked F or left F. So that's why I advise students to use. Now we get to the concluding 4 measures of the composition. We have F sharp minor arpeggio twice in a row. Let's think of both measures, 51 and 52, being the same volume, trying not to overplay, just playing with a very good, strong sound. I really don't think of double F as loud as I can play. Instead, I think of it as a strong and confident sound with vibrato. Now we take a look at the terrible note F sharp 6, the highest F sharp on the oboe. The standard fingering for this note is as follows. First octave key, half hole, second finger, right hand index, and the low C key. So in a sense, it looks like B flat, but played with a half hole, the C key, and the first octave key. That is what's going to work for most players. You will have to take typically a little bit more reed in the mouth to get it to speak, like you would for high E and F. It does tend to be sharp, so relax the embouchure, just like you would for the high C sharp. Another way that advanced students can play this is with the so-called third octave key in the back, the extra octave key. The third octave key has a huge advantage. It will allow the high E, F, and F sharp to speak much more easily. The disadvantage is if it's not adjusted extremely well, that note will be super sharp. Almost all professional instruments with the third octave key will have an adjustment screw. If you play that note with the third octave key and your pitch is super sharp, try turning the screw clockwise just a small amount. To keep the screw from digging into the wood of the oboe, insert your thumbnail under the key to hold it up, and then using the small screwdriver, turn no more than 1/12 of a turn clockwise. then test the pitch again. If you have any doubts about your ability to do this or feel nervous, by all means, know your limitations. Take your instrument to a professional or to a music repair shop and ask them to do it while you test the pitch yourself. Now we get to the last note of the composition, the two F sharps. And we've just got through playing a bunch of high notes, so we're used to voicing higher on the oboe. When we get to the F sharp, right before we change to the low F sharp, we'll need to change our voicing downward too, so that we can get the F sharp, the final note, the low F sharp, to speak on time. Again, we don't want to play as loud as possible. If anything, maybe play the last F sharp just a little bit softer. Focus on tone quality instead of thinking about all of the fast notes. Take one measure plus a note, if you recall the pedagogy from earlier in this video. Work with one constant airstream until you're very comfortable playing the notes and they sound very connected, even when tongued. Remember, fast technique is a matter of patience and persistence with a metronome. I hope you're still using your journal. The idea of a journal is to chart your progress and to give you a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment as you've practiced on the weeks and months in preparation for the all-region tryouts. This is the last video for etude number 24. As you get ready for the all-region auditions, I want to wish you all good things and a happy and relaxed performance at the all-region auditions.